why he's on the list. If you look up the definition of a grifter, his name will show up. I'm going to be ranking which wealth gurus actually make you rich, and I want you to underline the word rich. I very much know I'm going to make some people happy and some people mad, and I cannot wait, and I'm a little nervous at the same time to read the comments. But I want to give 2 disclaimers before I jump into this list of individuals that I'm going to be ranking. Disclaimer number 1 is I'm thinking through the lens of I have a daughter and I hope to have more kids. And what would I tell them? Like, who would I want them to learn from first? The other one is I am an entrepreneur. And even though you don't need to be an entrepreneur, I do believe thinking like an entrepreneur or having an entrepreneurial mindset is one of the first principles on how you can become rich, whether you start a business, or whether you are an employee, but you think entrepreneurially in how you invest. So with those 2 disclaimers, let's get into the list. We had ChatGPT randomize the list, but I do have a confession. I put this person at the top because I just want to get him out of the way. And his name is Tai Lopez. He's going in the D tier for a couple things. Reason number 1 is if you look up the definition of a grifter, his name will show up.
Knowledge.
He has been marketing and pushing hard. And I want to, again, give him his flowers where I think he deserves his flowers. He has some really good points that he's made in the past. The reason he goes in D category is he's like, has no shame to the game. Like he's literally been indicted. He's got lots of problems, lost a lot of people's money. And yet I still see ads of him marketing for his, like he could interview you on his podcast and pay him a bunch of money. And that just kind of puts a bad taste in my mouth. And so for that reason, he put him in the D category. Tai would be the last person I would want my kids to learn from. So Tai, let's cross him off the list. Next person is Morgan Housel. He's the author of Psychology of Money. And he's one of my favorite just thought leaders. I put him in the S category, and here's why. A Psychology of Money is one of the best books you can read on this category. His way of writing and the way that he views the world is very, very fundamentally strong. And he's got like 2 points that I just want to call out. Point number 1 is he's like one of the few people that talk about the value of having your money, like having a cash position. And while that doesn't necessarily make a ton of sense on paper, it opens up your ability to potentially say yes to a job that you may have not been able to say yes to. He's also someone that's talking about, the value of being a good dad and being a good spouse. Really, really appreciate that. In his newest book on spending money, he talks about this framework around if no one could see your purchase, would you buy it? And I just thought like that just epitomize so much of what I think gets people in trouble. And so, Morgan, you're a legend, man. You deserve to be in the S tier. Third person is Graham Stephan. And while he's the GOAT of financial YouTube, here's what I'll say about Graham. I'll put him in the B category. Graham, I have a ton of respect for you. I've been watching Iced Coffee Hour, and your videos, especially the old Graham videos, really, really solid. I put Graham in the category of Graham is a content creator first and foremost, which is not a dig to him. Like he's an amazing content creator. So there tends to be a lot more maybe fear-based content that I see. Why? Because more people click on it. So it's a good content game. I would say watch Graham and you'll have a lot of good fundamental ways of thinking about money. I love how he's frugal. And that's a great, but then also is frugality the way to become rich? He's also very focused on index funds, which is fine. But again, it's not like, I don't necessarily know if that's like the ticket or framework to become uber rich. But so he's the GOAT and S tier when it comes to content creation, but B tier when it comes to gurus to help you be rich. All right, next person on the list is Robert Kiyosaki. And I'm going to actually put him in the A tier. That might shock some of you because it's like, why not S tier? You know that I'm trying to get him on the show. And he's written probably one of the greatest books of all time, especially when it comes to like helping you get to where you've gone. And it's either like the Bible, Think and Grow Rich, or Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And Robert Kiyosaki wrote that book, and it's fundamentally really strong. Is you want to buy assets, you're financially free if you have enough passive income being greater than expenses. And like all of that is really, really solid. And I would hope that all of my kids read that book, and it would be one of the first books I would tell them to read. Here's the reason he's in the A category, not S category. Since he's published that book, there's been a lot of scandals. And again, when you're such a big name, there's going to be lots of people that are going to want a piece of you. But unfortunately, he's been involved in marketing things and aspects that don't necessarily put him in the S tier in my book. But I would say A tier is super, super strong. Anyone in the S, A tier, and even B tier, super solid in my books. Next person on the list is Suze Orman, and she is going to go in the C tier. And here's why. if I think of Suze Orman and the prompt was different and it was, hey, who's the guru that you would list if someone's like broke and trying to get less broke or trying to like get out of a hole? Suze Orman, some of the other people like that are going to be like the highest on the list because I think there's almost no better communicators than them when it comes to like, this is why you shouldn't buy this thing and this is why you need to pay off your debt and all this stuff. They're very motivational. They're very good speakers and they've helped a lot of people. But when we're talking about helping you get rich, their advice by definition is not setting yourself up to do that. And so that's why Suze Orman goes in the C category. Again, great content creator. She's written some good books, but most of her advice is focused on being less broke, being less poor, and not necessarily being rich. The next person on this list is Alex Hormozi. And if you're not necessarily in the entrepreneur marketing space, you might not even know who this is. If you are, you for sure know who Alex Hormozi is. He actually just had his newest book, become like one of the all-time bestsellers right out the gates. He is actually going to go in the S tier, which again might shock some of you because you're like, wealth gurus, is he even a wealth guru? Here's why he's going in the S tier in my books. I am a big believer, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, I believe the entrepreneurial mindset helps you regardless when it comes to helping you become rich. Whether you're an employee somewhere and you're thinking entrepreneurially to make more money and think about investing entrepreneurially, or whether you're an entrepreneur, I think his advice is really solid. What I love about him is he's focused less on hype, less on maybe selling something real fast and more of like around legacy. He's like, I want to be quoted 100 years from now. And I just find that type of game is really solid. And he's also said things like, hey, instead of investing in the S&P, invest in the S&P and me. And that was like his way of saying, most of you are diversifying and investing too soon. Invest in your ability to earn and you can actually make it rain and everything else can get a lot easier. And so again, when I'm thinking about my kids, whether they're entrepreneurs or not, I would love for them to learn about how Alex Hormozi's thinking about things. Also, Alex is not anti-life insurance. He's actually a fan of max funded, overfunded life insurance as a way to save and then deploy. And so I just think that's, he very much lives out those principles. And for that reason, he goes in the S tier. All right. Andrew Tate. I'm telling you, our producer's trying to get me canceled here. I don't know why he's on the list, but Andrew Tate, if I had to give him a tier, he's going in the D tier. And here's why. I'm not going to make this political. I think that Andrew Tate, he's like a lightning rod. So whatever you say about him, you're going to get people being frustrated. And so I am not going to comment on the things that he may have been indicted over, whether he did them, whether he did not. I'm just purely looking at, is Andrew Tate going to help you get rich? And I see Andrew Tate as someone who's an amazing marketer who can get you hyped up, but he's essentially, his whole pitch is how you should make him more famous and how you can get rich by making him more famous. At least that's my take on Andrew Tate. I've definitely not watched all of his content, but that's what I would say. So yeah, can you learn about marketing? Yes. Can you learn about, maybe digging your heels down and making a movement? Sure. Can you learn things from Andrew Tate, even if you disagree with him? Absolutely. Do I put him in a great category when it comes to getting rich? Absolutely not. In fact, I think there's a lot more damage that can be received from someone like him because he's literally just getting an army of people clipping his stuff. And I don't think that's going to compound well for the people that are watching Andrew. And would love to be proven wrong, but that's why he goes in the very bottom tier in my category, which is D tier. All right, next person is Humphrey Yang, and Humphrey is, I'm a fan of his work. I would consider Humphrey a friend. He's an amazing content creator, and that's why I put him in the B category. Humphrey is one of these people that I think his content is some of the best I've seen, period. He's made content around credit cards. He's made content around the S&P. Really solid stuff. His content's very clear to understand. But when I think of the word rich, this is the key word that I've like really had to grade people by. Would Humphrey be one of the first people that I say, go learn from him to help you get rich? The answer would be no. I would say like, hey, if you really want to understand how the money game works, if you want to be financially responsible, if you want to understand the whole credit card game and not sell emotionally, go learn from Humphrey. And that's why he's right on the edge of B tier, potentially A tier, but I put him in the B tier very much because when I think of him and Graham, I think of two people that are doing very similar things. They're great at content. They're not cutting corners in creating content. They have a ton of respect from me in that category, but that's why I'm putting him in the B tier. All right. The Money Guy Show, they are amazing YouTube creators. I even cringe when I say YouTube creators because I see them first and foremost as like planners that create YouTube content, which makes them really unique. I decided to put them in the A tier, and here's why. I think their videos are really, really solid. I am a big fan of the way that they articulate. I'm a big fan of them calling out, bad advice on the internet. They have solid interviews. I love their new segment where they're bringing people in and like doing audits. They also have their financial order of operations, which is like a way of thinking through. It's like a Dave Ramsey's 7 baby steps, but better. And it's very thoughtful. Here's the reason they're an A tier, not S tier. The reason they're an A tier is they give really solid advice, but it's my understanding that they're not focused on alternative asset classes. They're not necessarily super focused on entrepreneurship. It seems like their audience is the people that are like making money, and they're one of their top advices is, take advantage of the 401k match, which is great advice. But is that like the thing that's going to help you get rich? It's going to help you build wealth. And it's going to help you be a really, really good steward. But that's why I've put them in the A category and not S category. This one was, again, really tough because depending on how you view them, they could go all the way to S to maybe B, but I'm putting them in a solid A. I've also had a video reacting to their take on infinite banking. I don't hold that against them just because they're not a fan of life insurance and infinite banking. That doesn't disqualify them from helping you get rich. I just wish maybe they were a little bit more open-minded to the alternatives and spoke a little bit more to the entrepreneurial mindset. Maybe that's why they have a way bigger brand than we do. So maybe I can learn from them when it comes to staying in my lane, building an amazing business, and doing YouTube. But that's why they're in the A category. All right, next person on the list is Grant Cardone. And Grant, man, this is another person I could put him all over the place. I'm actually going to put him in the C category, which might shock some of you guys. I can see some of you guys maybe screaming at me and saying he deserves higher. I see Grant as a more ethical Tai Lopez. I'm sorry, Grant. I just do. I just see him as someone that's like, hey, I'm a marketer first and foremost. I am going to sell you the 10x thinking. I see him as someone who's, selling courses. He's the type of person that's like, hey, I'm going to teach you, but pay me a lot of money in some cases. But all that to say, when I look at like some of the things that he teaches, like he's heavily in Bitcoin. Do I think Grant Cardone really understands how Bitcoin works? Well, you watch his Micro Saylor interview and you tell me. He's big in real estate, but again, he's pushing his own real estate syndications. And again, this is not the video for it, but if you're going to invest in a real estate syndication, not investment advice, would he even be on the top list? For me, no. And I think people that really know what's going on wouldn't necessarily consider that the case. And so he preaches real estate similar to how Robert Kiyosaki preaches real estate. But then if you actually look at what he's actually pushing you to, it's like, man, I don't know if that's going to help you become rich. What I do like about what he teaches is he's a big fan of you investing in yourself. And so that's where he potentially deserves a higher tier. I would honestly love to hear from you guys. Where do you think Grant Cardone ends up? But again, if I'm thinking about my kids and who I want them learning from, that's why I put you in the C tier. All right, next person on the list is Ramit Sethi. And guys, this is why you need to hit subscribe. This is why you need to help us grow our platform, because I'm putting Ramit in the S tier, which a part of me is dying inside by saying this, but I have to be true to my convictions. The reason a part of me is dying inside is Ramit is very, very against life insurance. Like pretty much, I would say like if you sell life insurance, you're hurting people and scamming people. I don't know if he said that verbatim, but I definitely get the vibe there. I don't think he would even talk to me if he knew what I stand for. So that's that. There's that. But just because he's so strong there doesn't mean that his advice, and he literally wrote a book, I'll Teach You to Be Rich. And for that, it's really strong. Here's why. He lives out his convictions when he says the things that actually you value. And so, for example, he doesn't value cars, so he drives a crappy car. He doesn't necessarily value real estate, so he lives in an apartment. But he spends money on what he does value. And then he also just has really, really solid advice when it comes to buying versus renting. He's one of the few people that are like, run the numbers. Most people, including, some gurus that will just say like, they'll just give you a blanket answer of like, do this thing. And Ramit knows that there's for sure an emotional tie, but he's like, buying a house could be one of the dumbest things that you do. And I've reacted to that. And I tend to agree with that, response. And he's like, run the math. when things are really big deal. He also, I wouldn't necessarily put him in the entrepreneurial camp, but he does have content that entrepreneurs can benefit. But even if you're not an entrepreneur, he's like creating content around how you can actually ask for raises and all. And so I definitely think you follow his advice. There's odds are in your favor to do quite well. And for that, Ramit, we might not agree on our politics and life insurance, but I'll put you in the S tier. All right, Patrick Bet-David. Patrick is somebody that I actually have been following ever since I started BetterWealth. I started BetterWealth. I would watch Gary Vaynerchuk and Patrick Bet-David with Valuetainment. And before, when I first started watching him, he wasn't doing any of his podcast stuff. He was doing like entrepreneurial skits. And I read one of his first books, ironically, on like the life insurance business, because PHP was founded by him and it was very much in the life insurance space. And so I'm going to put him in B tier. I think he's a person that is really tough to determine because there's aspects that I really, really like about him. Like he's a self-made entrepreneur. He's really, he stands on his convictions. He leans into having hard conversations. In fact, if you follow our channel, like I'm having people that disagree and I'm pushing back. I've learned a lot of that from just seeing Patrick and seeing him. Like just because he's friends with someone doesn't mean he's not gonna push back. But again, I have to go back to the prompt: teach you to be rich. And so here's what I would tell my kids is I respect Patrick's ability to build business. And I think there's a lot that can be learned. The reason he's in B category though, and not higher is, again, teach you to be rich. There's a lot of other people that I think you could learn from, including people like Graham and Humphrey that I would actually lean on more around practicality than Patrick. I think Patrick's been really successful and you can learn from like what he does, not necessarily what he says. All right, next person is Dave Ramsey, the financial GOAT when it comes to entertainment, radio, his ability to communicate. If you've been following my journey, I want Dave Ramsey so badly to come on the show. I'm going to keep all my body parts on, but I would absolutely love to interview him. And again, by you guys following us, subscribing and all, you really help us this even be a possibility. So stay tuned. There's a couple things I'm going to be doing in 2026 to get his attention. But Dave Ramsey, I got to stay true to my gut here, and I'm going to put you in the C tier. And here's why. Very similar to Suze Orman, even though you're way more talented than Suze Orman. I really, really appreciate your values. I very much appreciate your faith aspect. But your advice is to help people be less broke. And I actually believe people can take your advice and do quite well. But I mean, you stay true to your principle, but the fact that you are like so anti-debt, I think it can be very problematic from a risk management standpoint. I'm not even someone that's saying use debt to invest. I'm just saying like, I think paying off a mortgage fast is actually not in your favor when it comes to actually getting rich. And then your belief around 12% mutual funds being the solution, I feel like there's a lot left on the table there. And then even things like when someone says, hey, if I gave you a free Bitcoin, would you take it? You saying no because you're staying true to your word. But I'm like, if I called in, would you tell me that same thing? I think the obvious answer would be take it. And then the other question that was asked is, hey, if you could take $1 trillion or $1 billion loan at 0%, and that was like guaranteed, would you do that? And you said no. Again, so you're a S tier when it comes to your principles, and I have a ton of respect for that. But all of those examples would be something that I would pull my hair out if my own kids took that advice. And I want them to actually understand how money works. And so for that reason, you're in the C category, but I have the utmost respect for you in that category. The next person on the list is Andrei Jikh. And he's going in the C category as well. By the way, this list, other than Tai Lopez and Andrew Tate, really, really solid list so far. So I just want to be clear, like this was not easy for me to sift out. But the reason Andrei is going in C category is he is very, very good content creator. He actually throws in magic tricks and his content is awesome. Very entertaining, very engaging. The reason he's not necessarily in the B tier with Humphrey and Graham is he's a little bit more focused, I would say, on fear, on crypto, which again, doesn't necessarily make it right or wrong. But again, if you're thinking about getting rich, crypto is an asset class. But if your whole goal is to like buy XRP or Bitcoin to become rich, like I don't necessarily see that as like thinking first principles. And so that's where he's right on the BC tier, because I think he does still say a lot of good things. He's a great content creator, but again, he's a content creator first and foremost. I think he's looking through the lens of how can I make a really, really engaging video, not what do I believe in and what video can I make to actually help someone become rich. And so that's why I put Andrei in the C category. All right, next person on the list is Caleb Hammer, the way more famous Caleb on YouTube Finance. Caleb, I just want to tell you how I appreciate you before I put you in the C category. So, Caleb, what I appreciate about you, you stick to your guns and you are willing to have uncomfortable conversations. Like I'm watching some of your videos and I'm uncomfortable for you and you lean in and that's why you've really grown. I compare you to the like secular Dave Ramsey. Like you are very similar to Dave Ramsey. I would say you're maybe less extreme in some areas, but you're speaking. A lot of the people on your show are not crushing it, are not killing it. They're not killers coming on, and we're not talking about tax strategies and how we invest in these things or reduce risk on the portfolio. You're like screaming at people because they're being idiots. Yeah, they're spending money that they don't have. They're getting bad debt. They're taking on dumb jobs. They're doing dumb things. And entertainment level, incredible. And you're sticking to your lane. And in fact, I don't think your personality would really thrive talking to maybe people that are super, super rich, talking to family offices. Like you're picking that niche. And from an impact standpoint, you're having a huge impact. Again, I'm using the word getting rich. If I had to change up my prompts, Caleb Hammer, Dave Ramsey, and Suze Orman could potentially would be in an S tier depending on who we're speaking to. And so that's why Caleb Hammer, you're going in C, but a very respectful C. And so there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I very much look forward to hearing your takes. I think sometimes it's easy to be a Monday morning quarterback, but I appreciate you guys watching this whole thing through and like letting me know, like, Caleb, you're out of your mind. Where do you disagree? Where do you agree with me? This is the type of content that I'm hoping to compound and stack upon, because it's not just saying this person goes in that tier, but it's the why. And you'll, again, better understand how I'm thinking. So look forward to reading the comments, a little scared, but we'll see you on the next video.